How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another edition. This is the Good Bit Podcast. Thanks very much for tuning in this week. Welcome to another episode. My name is Chris Moffat, and as always, I am your host. Thanks very much for your time. I appreciate you being here. What an episode we've got for you this week. One of my favourite movies of all time. It is the second film by Quintin Tarantino, 1994's epic Pulp Fiction. We're going to chat about Pulp Fiction on the podcast. I think for the first time ever. We've definitely mentioned it a bunch of times in the past. But officially on this format of the Good Bit, Pulp Fiction has been selected. And who has it been selected by? I'm joined this week by stand-up comedian Rob Kane, who, by the way, I just hit the microphone, I am forever indebted to. I'm not sure if you know this, Rob, but you actually provided me with my first official professional acting job after I left drama college. So so this is the repayment for that. You're getting to come on here and talk about your favourite movie, so you should be honoured.
It's amazing how life kind of goes full circle, isn't it? It's just the gatekeeper. Was it the gatekeeper becomes a shepherd, and the shepherd becomes a gatekeeper? Is that the same?
I don't know. I don't know. How have you been? I've not seen you in the longest time.
I've been good, man. I've been good. Just obviously, I do comedy, so I've been busy with comedy stuff. Just kind of plugging away at that, mate, and just try to get right and do as many different things as I can to keep myself busy.
Because I came to see you perform, I think it was right before lockdown, wasn't it? Did you not do a show early 2020, or was that 2019? I can't remember.
Where was it? Where was the venue?
I don't know. I think it was your show, but you were running it as for your gig. You weren't a part of a show. It was your show.
Right. Was that the one in Mango, part of Glasgow Comedy Festival?
Could have been. I was there with Dion.
Yes, I think that was the one in Mango. I think that was March 2020.
Right, aye.
And I think lockdown kicked in the middle of March 2020, didn't it? So I think that makes sense.
Aye. So that's obviously the last time I saw you. So
yeah,
it was a weird time for everybody, but I'd love to get back and see you on stage again. What have you been doing in terms of the comedy game? I'm assuming it's had a bit of a resurgence since everything's opened back up again, but I can imagine it was quite difficult through actual lockdown.
Well, comedy was murder. I'm not gonna lie, during lockdown. It was things like this. It was like Zoom gigs and Google Teams and all that. And it was take me out at the bottom. You can see everyone's face at the bottom. And as soon as you make a bad joke, you just go, poo, 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 or the lights would just go out at the bottom of it. I say, it must be what it feels like to bond, take me out.
The instant gratification of seeing everybody's just saying, nope. Yeah.
Comedy is a harsh mistress at times. And nothing more harsher than a log out button. I think a log out button is just a kind of comedy, a comedian's cancer.
Or a camera off.
Camera off or log out. Camera off because back on is a cat there. It's just kind of putting a cat in front of the screen because you're that bad. It's camera off. When I come back, there's got to be a cat. If you're that bad, I might even put my hamster in front of the camera. Just downgrading through pets.
You end up with a goldfish.
Because back on is a goldfish. Because back on is a spatula. They're not doing anything breathing. They've just put kitchen utensils in front of the camera. It's like a wooden spoon, literally. That's symbolic. It's like a wooden spoon next time you come back on. Wow, man. Comedy in lockdown was horrendous.
Is it hard?
Wow. Comedy it's a spectator sport. It's a live sport. You know what I mean? You need to be able to see the punters in the flesh and interact. And people had just too much control over the comedy. The punters, as I said, when they could switch off, switch on. No, but in all seriousness, I'm just so glad everything's getting back to some form of normality because it's a passion. You know what I mean? You know yourself how passionate I'm about it. So to be able to get back out gigging again, it's just been brilliant.
Aye, definitely. How did that all start? Was it did you always try to make people laugh when you were wee and you just decided that's something you want to go into, or was it a kind of spur of the moment decision?
I think you've got funny bones in you. Some people get funny bones.
Right.
And Viv G.
Right.
I was working as an actor actually, doing TIE with a company called Theatre Works. And Viv was one of the actors on the course, in the company, sorry. And a few plays that we'd done together. I was always the kind of what's the term I'm looking for? The comedy element.
The kind of clown,
and the plays. And Viv, we did a big run in the Edinburgh Festival and all that. And Viv always said to me, she's like, "You've got brilliant comedy timing," and she runs a 10-week comedy class as part of Swiftplay Uni, which kind of gives you the basics of writing and stage technique and mic technique and deal with hecklers. And then you get a showcase gig at the end of it. You get to write 5 minutes of material and you get a showcase gig. So I went and did that 2006, and I got booked for a gig at the end of it, and then it's just kind of snowballed since then.
Nice. What was that like when you went up for the first time? I just imagine that being so either nerve-wracking or maybe you were confident. I don't know.
Can I swear on this?
Of course you can.
Well, I'm up on stage, and there was a well-known Glasgow comedy promoter who's a wee bit cantankerous, and in the mic stand, and when I walked on stage, I threw the mic stand down, and I was like, I was so full of adrenaline, the energy, I was so pumped up, and it was like a lot of my family and friends were there, obviously, because it's your first gig. But I get a decent response. I've always kind of sailed quite close to the wind when it comes to my comedy. And I feel as though, as George Carlin said, a comedian's job is to find a line, then cross it. You know what I mean?
Aye.
So I've always kind of been on that edge when it comes to my comedy. Kind of observational, kind of quite edgy,
Aye.
sometimes quite dark stuff. So I knocked this mic stand down from off the stage, and the guy came up to me afterwards and went, "How are you?" He went, "You're not a fucking who."
You felt like them, but
I was like, honestly, I felt like the kind of who. It was like the Who Power Rangers. I felt like all four of them combined. I don't even know. Is it 4 or 5 of them? I don't even know.
the Power Rangers. There's more than 4 of the Power Rangers, surely.
No, the Who. I mean,
Right, wait there. The Who. Aye, there's 4 of them.
you Google it. Aye,
Google it. Aye, there you go.
I felt like, I think it's Roger Daltrey. Is it Roger Daltrey?
I don't know.
Have you got it in Google just now? Is it?
Hey, we've got, let's see, the Who? Aye, Roger Daltrey and Pete Townshend.
Townsend.
Aye.
Pete Cowshed.
Pete Cowshed. Aye, them. That's the Who. Aye. So it went well. First gig went well.
First gig, in my head, first gig went well.
Aye.
Just because, but it passed a blur, you know what I mean?
Aye.
But then I went and did a few other gigs, and then I think you've made it, you know what I mean? You think you've made it after you've done about 5 gigs because you're make people laugh. But then you go and do, like, I remember doing a gig in Edinburgh. It was a pub. It was a weird shaped pub, like kind of big long bar, and it was all mirrored on one side, and then the other side was just the bar was so long, and the comedy, you were standing at the top of it with a mic. So you turn to your left, you see yourself like a million different images of yourself all the way down, like kind of a hall of mirrors in a circus. You know what I mean?
Aye.
And then 2 people in. I think they had one of the mirrors to make the pub look busy. Do you know what I mean? Just make it look more people. But it's like the flamingos in Edinburgh Zoo. Do you know that? The flamingos in Edinburgh Zoo, they have the mirrors and the enclosures because flamingos like company. You know that? So I think that's why I like to do gigs in kind of highly mirrored venues, just to make it look busy.
Get on, there's loads of people there.
That's it, yeah. But I like seeing myself dye my arse, or like 15 different visions of myself dye my arse on the way down the side of this pub. There's a dog in the pub, and it was like 2 people just sitting in the bar. And at one point, the dog even just turned its back on me and just started licking out the bowl. And I was like, "Wow, this is comedy, man. This is what it's all about."
You mentioned like the circus. That was actually I said you gave my first acting job, but my actual first job was I used to work at the circus, and I was in charge of circumcising the elephants. It was dreadful though. Like the wages were terrible, but the tips were enormous.
Well, hey, get it, say you.
Very good, very good. Heard that one the other night. I was howling.
That's like the leper ice hockey match. there was a face off the corner. That's
terrible. That's what I'm doing today. This is as many bad puns as we can do.
You probably can't use that one, can you? Or the leper jig. The leper gigolo, so you keep a tip. It's kind of similar, isn't it?
It's very similar. So how did it go about in terms of starting the theatre company that you hired me for? How did that go about? Because it was a theatre and education company. We did a wee tour went around loads of schools and stuff like that and did that kind of anti-smoking show. And it was great fun.
Well, I'd worked for a few TIE companies previously, like Theatre Works, Baldybane, companies like that. I was working for a project in the East End of Glasgow after I quit uni. It's called the East End Community Arts Project, and I would basically be my remit to go in schools and do drama workshops about different issues, a bit like the TIE stuff, but it was just kind of issues. So things like in the East End, it was stuff to do with things like bullying and that kind of thing, and online safety. But then the fire brigade came forward at the time and said, I built up a good connection with Strathclyde Fire and Rescue in the East End, a guy called Stephen McKee, and he came to me and said, listen, we've got a budget here. There's a lot of attacks on crews in the East End, like fire brigades are getting attacked by bricks and rocks when they show up to fires. There's a lot of kind of hydrant abuse, like kind of young people letting off fire hydrants with the water and all that. So he said, could you do a series of workshops about this? Yeah, that sounds good. So I decided to also bring in my friend who was like a videographer, Seth Hardwick. He just actually left his job. He worked with National Theatre for Scotland for 12 years doing all their videos. So at the time, Seth was that kind of job an actor, but he was into kind of film and edit and all that. So I said to Seth, why don't you come in and film each school? Like 6 weeks, we'll do like we play. We'll do workshops, and at the end, we'll get the kids to make up their own wee plays about the issues. When you film it, put together a package, give it to the kids, give it to the school, and then the school can pass it. Kids can give it to their parents, and then hopefully a kind of knockdown effect. So the parents will know the issues about fire hydrants and attacking crews and all that, and hopefully it might have a kind of, as I said, a knock-on effect, and they might be more wary of why it's dangerous. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people don't know. If you let off the water, then it can affect the water pressure in the street. If there's a fire in that street, it might not be strong enough to put out your fire, etc. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that kicked off. That went really, really well. And then on the back of that, Steve McKee from the fire service said, listen, there's other areas wanting these projects, wanting you get in different parts of Glasgow, or wanting you to get into the schools and do the same work, because it's a really good feedback. So I said, well, I'm only kind of tied to East End. My remit's East End. I work for East End Arts Project. And he said, well, what have I to get you funded from other areas to go in and blah, 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 because you don't set up your own company. And kind of that's how Kickstart was born.
Cool.
It was weird because it kind of coincided, but at the same time I started comedy.
Oh, really?
I remember, because I was still working East End when I started doing comedy, and then Kickstart kind of started. I think I started doing comedy around about March 2005. I started Viv's course.
Mm-hmm.
Kickstart was born in October 2005. I started doing Viv's course, and then Kickstart was formed in March 2006. So the two of them are really close together.
I didn't realise it was 2006 that started, because I came in 2018. So that was like a good 12 years on.
Yeah, you had been quite well established by then. We had done lots of different projects. I think you came in, it was the secondary schools in North Lanarkshire, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Aye.
So we'd basically done lots of, I think that was about the 6th or 7th year that we'd been in North Lanarkshire. We'd previously done South Lanarkshire, but we tried to get South Lanarkshire as well when you were in.
I did some of them, I think.
We did some. We did East and Western Bartonshire. We did Glasgow. We did East Renfrewshire. So that shows you how successful it was.
Mm-hmm.
If the project, I think it kind of folded. Just were you one of the last touring companies?
I think so. I must have went south when I came in, clearly. But it was definitely because I think we did end up. I think we did the last show. It was me, you, and Dion. I think who was on the podcast last week. I think we did the last show.
Yeah. So that was a good 12 years.
Aye, it's a good run
of it for a TIE company. So yeah, I was really, really proud of that piece of work, man, and it's something that finished probably just in time as well, because the pandemic coming in and all that, obviously.
Absolutely.
So it was probably good timing for it.
I ended up doing another like TIE tour with Baldybane like right after it, and then after I finished that tour, it was all dropped, and it was almost like I just got in time. Do you know what I mean? As you say, so.
You're like the kind of Black Widow of TIE companies, aren't you?
Well, listen, they see me show up for auditions and they all close the blinds.
Because Baldybane's, they're folded as well.
Aye, they are. So clearly, I must have that effect on people. So
that's what I'm saying. You're a Black Widow of all, mate.
still good. Tell me what it's like when you're doing your stand-up and you're performing and whatever, and maybe, for example, jokes aren't landing or whatever. Have you ever had like a kind of bad experience, bad hecklers? Anybody ever thrown in on the stage? Anybody had their wains there? Tell me about that stuff.
I've not had the whole kind of Chris Rock stroke kind of Will Smith scenario where somebody's come up and tried to crack me, but there's been a few. Aye, well, that's I want that to happen just for a kind of publicity side of things.
For some new material.
Exactly. So I'm constantly writing new material, so sometimes it doesn't land. Especially, I found it quite hard back after the pandemic. You know what I mean?
Aye.
Where you maybe rusty and not done a proper set for so long, and maybe forgot a lot of stuff or trying out a lot of new stuff. But listen, it's part of a comedian's job, as I said earlier, to kind of push boundaries. So if you're not trying out new material, then you're not really doing your job properly. Yeah. So I find that when I do new material, it maybe doesn't. It takes about 4 or 5 runs of it, just to find the timing or to find the kind of nuances or maybe just wee phrases that work, and then I find that I start making a foundation, an idea of a joke, and it tends to grow legs the more and more I tell it, because I find something else that works for it. But you need to be brave. I mean, you need to be brave up on stage, and at times where I have said stuff and people are just kind of looking at me, and then other times I go to a different gig and that stuff like raises the roof.
Aye.
You know what I mean? So
different audience.
So that's it. So that's why comedy's such a fickle game, man. Where, as I said, you can go to like last 2 weeks ago, I was doing a corporate for a well-known banking organisation who I'm not allowed to say their name still to this day. I kind of signed something, I'm not allowed to say who it was. Aye. And it was like they've got new premises in Glasgow, and it was like they've got a kind of fine dining restaurant at the top of it. It was like a kind of penthouse thing. And beforehand, the women's lattes, don't say anything too controversial and stuff, and just kind of keep it light and breezy. I was like, all right, okay. So I went on kind of light and breezy. I'm kind of getting a few kind of like golf laughs. I mean, golf applauses. And then another act who I booked for it just went for it, just went gun ho, and the place is in uproar. I'm like, hold on, I'm holding back. I'm holding back, and he's gone for it. I said to him, keep it PG, man. He's just ripping in. So I'm like, give me that mic. So next time I went up, I just went, you know what, here we go. And that's a good kind of example of how sometimes you need to kind of read the room, you know what I mean? And sometimes I've misread the room, and sometimes I've been too timid, or I've been too harsh. So every room's different, man.
I just think a comedian's job, I don't like, obviously I'm not an old guy or anything like that, but see these days, I can imagine a comedian's job being quite difficult because everybody's really sensitive now. And it's like you need to worry about what you're going to get away with, right? But as you say, if you need to be brave, you need to go for it. And you need to not worry about offending people, right? Like, you just need to go for it.
Well, aye, but see, as long as you're not going on stage and you're not committing isms, you know what I mean? You're not racism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia. See, as long as you're not committing all that stuff, then I think if you're good enough and if you're smart enough, then if you're ironic, you know what I mean? People appreciate that and realise that this guy's not up here just kind of spouting hatred. He's actually making a point behind it. There's actually a message behind it. You know what I mean?
Aye, he's just naturally funny. Who are some of the people that you've kind of gigged with then? Like any big names? I know you used to gig with the Cinnamon for the Chase.
Oh, Paul, I've done a couple of gigs with Paul Sinner. Aye, that's right. And the Stands, he's been on the kind of same bill with him. Really nice guy. I gigged with Kevin Bridges and stuff when he first started. Well, not when he first started.
That's right, aye.
Kevin had been going for a while. It was just before actually Kevin had did the first McIntyre roadshow.
Oh, aye.
It was just before he'd done it, but it's just before it went out. Did a gig with him and Daniel Sloss. Have you heard of Daniel Sloss?
Of course, aye.
Daniel's mum was this kind of manager stroke agent back then. So it was Daniel's first run in Edinburgh as well. So he's from Kirkcaldy. So his mum kind of booked out the Adam Smith Theatre, and she asked me and Kevin to go and basically support Daniel.
Wow.
So I did 20 minutes, and then Daniel did like half an hour, and Kevin did 20 minutes, then he did another half an hour to try out some stuff for his Edinburgh run.
Yep.
So that was quite weird, man, doing that gig. It was kind of me sandwiched between Bridges the Sloths.
Aye, that's cool.
That was good fun, man. That was good. I really enjoyed that.
What about Michael? Is it Michael Redmond, Father Stone?
Oh, Michael's amazing, man. I love Michael. I've done so many nights with Michael.
Aye.
Michael used to do the Sunday night residency in the stand.
Right.
Michael Redmond Sunday service, and I've been on many a time there, man. Michael's just such a cool, laid back, kind of blasé, kind of surreal, abstract, kind of comedian on stage. But off stage, he's just nicest, softest, gentlest guy you could ever meet. You know what I mean?
Aye, good. It's just obviously Fred Father Ted. He's like the boring priest or whatever. I would have loved to see him in live performing. You know what I mean?
Oh, he's brilliant, man. He's a great comedian. He just doesn't care. That's what I love about him as well. He just says stuff that's so wild, kind of wacky.
Aye.
He gets away with it. He gets away with it because his accent and his personality and how he looks. You know what I mean? So he just gets away with it. He's brilliant. I love him.
It's class. Tell me about when you started watching movies then. Has that always been like being a fan of watching movies? Do you have any memories of when you were wee, going to the cinema for the first time, all that stuff?
Yeah, big fan of the film and cinema. I've always kind of been into it. As I've got older, I've kind of got a wee bit more kind of wanky, if you like, where I don't like kind of popcorn in Hollywood, but I've started appreciating the kind of big blockbuster element of film as well. But for a while, I tried to go all kind of Wes Anderson-y,
Aye.
and only watch film that kind of had a meaning or was artistic or was kind of filmed in like 35mm or something. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
So, but I remember my first ever trip to the cinema. It was James Bond. We went to go and see. Me and my uncle took me to go and see Bond. I think it was Live and Let Die. It's at the start. It's the sequence with he's snowing, the skiing down the mountain.
Right.
This whole starting sequence. And I remember going to see Back to the Future as well.
Very good.
Came out. So I've always, you know what? I take my son to the cinema quite a lot as well.
Aye.
And he's actually at the stage where he wants to go and see films in the cinema rather than watch them on the TV. You know what I mean?
Which is a good thing.
He always says that. I took him to go and see. Last one we went to go and see there was Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And sometimes it has its downfalls, like going to see films like that. But just kind of planting that seed in him as well. I mean, they kind of loving the cinema and the whole experience, the big screen and the popcorn and everything else, you know.
Aye. What was your favourite film when you were wee, like when you're a young boy?
Oh, I loved Mary Poppins. I love Mary Poppins. I remember having that on repeat quite a lot. I just loved the songs, and I just liked the whole kind of idea of this person coming, taking care, and everyone loving her, and it was just everyone just so relatable in the songs. I don't know what it was, mate. I don't know. It just made me feel warm and fuzzy when I used to watch it when I was a wee guy. I was never really into cartoons, I'm being honest with you, like kind of animated film. When I was younger, I just preferred to see like proper films. Like the Poppins, a big one. The first one actually I did like was Robin Hood. Remember the animated Robin Hood?
Aye.
The Disney one. I loved that because it had a big football scene in it. Remember?
Aye, that's right.
A football match. So I remember watching that when I was younger, thinking, "Wow, this is amazing." And Jungle Book, I love Jungle Book,
of course,
as well. So kind of things like that. And then as I started getting older, I get into things like Back to the Future. As I said, I love Back to the Future.
Yep.
And then Terminator T2. I was in my teens. I was obsessed by T2. Used to have like posters of Schwarzenegger everywhere and quotes and all that. And I loved all that kind of sci-fi kind of doomsday scenario kind of thing, you know.
Aye. So you preferred T2 to the first one?
Oh, I love T2. I think T2 was just. I think then it was the whole CGI thing was just coming in. I think as well with T2. So it just kind of opened up my eyes to what a film could be like. It should be like, you know.
Aye.
Never really watched T3. Never really big into all that.
I've never seen it.
Me neither. I just think T2 could just be a standalone movie. You know what I mean?
So I recently watched Terminator 2 for the first time, and I couldn't believe the differences of the two of them between the first one as well. I don't know if it's just because it's got a bigger budget, or if, like, I don't know, James Cameron was being a bit more ballsy with it or whatever. But like, it's such a step up, and I like the first one. It's a bit slow, but I kind of know what people are talking about when they say like the second one's better. And that's kind of like a recurring theme. Like, how many other films is there where it's like the second one's better? People always say like Empire Strikes Back is better than A New Hope.
Toy Story.
Oh, do you prefer Toy Story 2? Aye, that's interesting.
Oh, definitely.
Aye.
You don't think Toy Story 2 is much better than Toy Story 1?
I like it. I like all of them, but I don't know. I mean, I've just watched Toy Story 1 more, so probably I need to go back and watch Toy Story 2. I've not seen it in a while.
Monsters University.
Oh, do you think I was better than the first one as well? And only reason I disagree with that is because Monsters Inc. was the first film I saw at the cinema, so I always got a soft spot for that.
Right. Okay.
Aye.
There's no room for sentiment when we're digressing and dissecting films.
When it comes to Disney, I think that's all right. Like, for example, Frozen 2 I thought was kind of a wee bit better. No, Wreck-It Ralph 2. You seen Wreck-It Ralph 2?
Ralph Wrecks Internet?
Aye.
I
thought that was better. I thought that was better.
Aye.
Back to the Future 2 is not as good as Back to the Future 1. Jaws 2 isn't as good as Jaws 1.
I quite like Back to the Future 2. I quite liked that whole kind of seeing their perception of the future. And
quite sad,
and a lot of stuff came true, actually, isn't it?
Aye.
Like kind of big screen TVs and kind of holograms and zooms, all this kind of stuff.
Zooms, aye. Is it like it was come out with like 3D Jaws and it's like Jaws 9 or
That's
whatever?
Right,
Aye.
Not far off it. That would be too Fast and Furious now, wouldn't it?
That's true. Aye. So I asked you to pick a favourite film for today, and like really quickly, you were like Pulp Fiction. That's my one, and I consider Pulp Fiction one of the greatest films ever made. One of my favourites of all time. Why did you pick Pulp Fiction? Why is it your favourite film?
Lots of reasons. Pulp Fiction was kind of like, I guess it was my kind of coming of age film, I guess, from kind of childhood to adulthood. I was doing higher English at the time, and my higher English teacher, who was a big inspiration in me when it comes to writing, performing, his wife used to teach like kind of actors, and she seen a spark in me when I was young. I was in a school play. I was in Wizard of Oz. I played the Scarecrow in Wizard of Oz, and his wife came to see it and stuff. And I was third year, and all the other principals were fifth and sixth year.
Cool.
Tin Man, the Lion, they were Dorothy, they were all fifth and sixth year. I was third year.
Toto.
And I had that role. Aye, Toto was. He was just a figment of imagination. I think we kind of mimed Toto. No. So Mr. Gillespie's name was. Bring in the Observer and all that on a Monday morning, the Observer newspaper, just to appreciate the writing and even just the photography and all that, and just how different it was from kind of red top tabloids. And he said, remember him saying to me, because we used to speak about film quite a lot, and he was a big fan of Tarantino, and he said at the time, he actually, Trainspotting was a close second actually. He'd actually said to me at the time, he said, this film's coming out, Guy Tarantino. I went and watched Reservoir Dogs because of him, and I thought Reservoir Dogs was brilliant.
Yep.
And he said to me, this film is going to change cinema. He said this film is going to be amazing. Tarantino is just going to go from strength to strength after this. Whoa.
Everybody, we've lost
Sorry.
Rob. Everybody relax.
I'm back. Hi.
Rob just fell off a couch.
Sorry about that. I had a slight kind of cushion mishap there. So it's not the first time. But he said this film is going to change cinema history. So I thought, well, I'll watch it anyway. And I just kind of watched it with my jaw dropped slightly. And it's one of these films where you need to watch a second, a third, a fourth time.
Definitely.
It's got so many layers, and the dialogue, you pick up so many wee things. But just to have watch something where the dialogue was so raw and so gritty, do you know what I mean? And
aye.
And a lot of the time they didn't speak about anything, but it meant something. You know what I mean? Like some of the scenes and stuff where they're talking about the quarter pounder with cheese in France, and like the drive to go and do that. Is there allowed spoilers on this?
I'd like to think if people have seen the film, like, after listening to this, they would have seen it. Do you know what I mean? So,
aye, the conversation between him and kind of about Marcellus Wallace's wife, Uma Thurman, when he's like, have you ever met her? I'm going to take her out. I'm going to be polite. I'm going to hold doors up and all that. And then when he first sees Uma Thurman, you can kind of see, and it's got that whole suspense. Is there something going to happen here? You know what I mean? And then the scene in Jack Rabbit Slims when she's ordering and she's like, "Don't be a square" and all that, and the
Aye.
square, and you're like, "Wow!" And
Where did
then
that come
when they're
from?
dancing, and then when they're dancing, you're like, "Wow, fucking, this is amazing, man!" It's like Travolta's got the moves, and there's such a chemistry between them on screen.
Definitely.
Do you know what I mean? And then to go from that to the scene in the gun shop when Zed has got when Zed's kind of performing male rape on Marcellus Wallace as well.
Aye.
To that when they get him downstairs and all that, it's just like so many. It's like, oh, honestly, I could the scene where they get stabbed where she has an overdose and
In the heart.
and the EpiPen in the heart, and just you're kind of sitting holding your breath. Is she dead? Is she going to come back alive?
Yep.
To Bruce Willis crossing the road and
Aye.
to Marcellus Wallace crossing the road and Bruce Willis sitting singing "Garden Flowers on the Wall," and then he kind of speeds up and then it cuts out and then you don't know what's happening. I mean, it's like, honestly, mate, I could talk about it all day.
Aye. No, definitely. That's why I love it as well. And it's weird. So loads of things connects, like, I don't know, just my kind of film interest to Pulp Fiction, right? First thing is originally, this is the Good Bit podcast, right? This is the name of the podcast is the Good Bit. Originally, the original name for the Good Bit was the Royale with Cheese. I don't know why.
Royale with cheese.
I think we were just me and my mate Aaron had just watched Pulp Fiction. You know the way it's like stuck in your head. So it was going to be Royale with Cheese. I think we posted a thing on Twitter or something like that. It was like Royale with Cheese coming soon or something. And then my mate had to go to me and said, "You're so unoriginal." And I was like, "Right, sorry." And then we changed it to the Good Bits coming up. We thought that's a bit of a mouthful. So it just became, it was a bit of a mouthful of cheeseburgers. So it became the Good Bit. And then I also had a neighbour just in the street from me who in the living room had the picture now, like the poster of like Uma Thurman on the bed, smoking the fag.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That, you know, you go into somebody's like living room in the house or whatever, right? And like there's like a centerpiece of, there's like a main part of the living room, whether it's a table, maybe it's a big telly, fireplace, whatever. The biggest thing in this person's living room was the Uma Thurman poster and framed above the couch in the living room. And I just always thought like that's just like this random picture. And obviously when I got older, I realised that it's actually the poster of this mental film. And it did totally change cinema. Like after this film, you get hundreds of films that are like playing with like the kind of order of scenes and the background, the characters, things like The Truman Show and all this, where it's like if you know, you're kind of in on certain jokes, and then it's revealed later on that it's totally different. It's just such a well put together film.
I love it, mate. Love it, and that whole kind of thing as well. That whole mystery of what's inside the case as well.
Right, that's always like this fan theory thing. What do you think it would be inside the case? People are saying it's like this person's soul and all that, and I'm like, what is it though? Do you know what I mean?
I think it's the object of what we desire. I think in the case,
I like that.
It's a thing where it's what you want most is in the case.
Aye, because it's gold, isn't it?
Aye, but it's never anything. You never see it, and it's just like, and it's never spoken about. So it's almost like this kind of air of mystery, and it's almost like we're all chasing. I think that's the whole film, the whole kind of running theme throughout the film is they're chasing something that they can't have throughout the whole film.
Aye,
you know,
definitely. As you say, the conversations between the characters, it's almost like they're talking about nothing, but you do kind of you feel like a fly in the wall, don't you? And you're like trying to listen to what they're saying. And it's all the relationships. So you've got like, who is it at the
foot massage? The foot massage conversation.
The foot massage. You're like, this is an awkward conversation, but you can't stop listening.
Did you give a brother a foot massage?
I ain't giving no one a foot massage.
Say what one more time.
I didn't realise I was doing my podcast with Samuel Jackson. That would be a guest though. That'd be an episode, wouldn't it?
Oh, wow.
What would his film be? Pulp Fiction? No, it wouldn't be one of his films.
Does Marcellus Wallace look like a bitch? Why are you trying to fuck him like a bitch, Brett?
Check out the big brain on Brad.
That's it. Because of the metric system. Wow!
Hamburgers, the cornerstone of a nutritious breakfast.
Breakfast, that's it, yeah.
But you get those two, right? You get Sam Jackson and John Travolta, right? Two completely different actors. they're together. They have this brilliant kind of bromance, loads of different scenes and stuff. Then you've got, as you say, John Travolta and Uma Thurman. This weird kind of sexual chemistry that's not, that it's more like a kind of like, he knows he can't do anything, so he's like being very respectful. And then you've got Bruce Willis with everybody else. He kills a guy when he's boxing. He's a boxer, kills a guy.
Right.
Tim Roth and what's his girlfriend's name? Honey Bunch or whatever.
Okay.
Aye. Them at the start. And I just remember watching this film for the first time, and like, I'm not good with like long films. I need to kind of break them down a bit, but I'm not got the greatest attention span. So I remember watching that, and this opening scene, this is the first time I watched it, and kind of losing interest. Aye. It kind of losing interest to me, but just being like, what are they talking about? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's got nothing to do with this film. And then when we got the whole bit with like John Travolta and Sam Jackson in the car, then I was like, right, okay. When I saw that car, well, I saw that scene with like the cheeseburger and stuff like that, or hamburger, and he shoots them and stuff like that. That was like, that changed everything for me when I was watching it. But then when they come back to the restaurant later on, that was the moment where I was like, you know, the way sometimes in films they have like a good films here, and there's like a moment that like takes it to the next level and becomes one of your favorite films. That's like that moment. There's so many of them in the film, but like when it comes full circle and they're in the restaurant at the end, that was a big thing. When did you first see it? Did you see it when it came out?
Yeah, I seen it come out. So I was like 5th or 6th year in school. So
And your teacher
I'm going to
said
go for. So I'm going to go for 94. Was it 94 it came out? 95?
94 it came out, aye.
Was it? So that's when I seen it. I seen it just like when it first came out. I went to see it.
In the cinema? Jesus, that'd be a cracking experience in the cinema.
It was a GFT. I went to see GFT.
Wow.
And because obviously it wasn't kind of mainstream, I guess. I mean, it was still kind of indie art house a wee bit. You know what I mean?
Aye.
Tarantino back then, and even just the soundtrack hits you. You know what I mean?
Aye.
She's in the restaurant. Any of you fucking pricks move! I'll execute every motherfucking last one of you. And then dum.
That's it. And I wrote that down. I took a couple of notes when I was like going over some things. That when you first hear that music, because it's this big, like when she screams, it's just her voice is so much, and you get pure tense watching it. And then that doom Black Eyed Peas. No, it's not Black Eyed Peas. You know what I mean? It does that song. But it's so iconic. I would have loved to have seen that in cinema. See when like after COVID and they were like the cinemas were opening and stuff like that again, and it, like they were putting on reissues of classic films. That was one I was like, they need to put on Pulp Fiction. I'll be there to see it in a second. And
even just like in Jack Rabbit Slims, the music as well when they're dancing. It was a teenage wedding, any old folks wished them well. It's just like songs that again, it's quite symbolic, I think, as well, because the songs are like old songs that you maybe wouldn't listen to before.
Yeah, definitely.
And like the actors are old actors that maybe had their shot. That, you know what I mean? And in like he's cast them in roles maybe they've never been cast in before.
Yeah.
Like obviously Willis is always like the hero, and he's went from kind of being like the hero to being this kind of retiring boxer who's obviously ripped all these gangsters off to John Travolta playing the hitman. You know what I mean? I think.
Yeah.
I don't know what the last film he was in. Was it Angel? Was it Michael or something? He played an angel or something.
Must have been, aye.
Before he was in that. So I mean, you kind of go from more kind of and like people plucking out of obscurity. Like Tim Roth, I love Tim Roth and Reservoir Dogs as well. I think he's an amazing actor. Tim Roth, he's brilliant. But like Sir Ving Rhames as well. Was that his first kind of major role as well?
Must have been, aye.
So guys like that, you know what I mean, who he's just kind of catapulted and gave them a second breath of life as well.
And obviously, as you say, Sam Jackson would have done loads of things before this as well. But this is like you can't imagine him playing anything else after this film. He's so iconic in this film. Yeah, you know what I mean? That big voice.
Aye, and that role was made for him, isn't it? That role was just you can't see anyone else in that role now.
No,
either.
No. You mentioned Reservoir Dogs. What are some other Tarantino films that you like?
Like Kill Bill. Like Django Unchained. I'm actually a big fan of Leonardo DiCaprio. I think he's a very, well, not underrated because he's obviously won an Oscar and stuff, but
of course.
But I think a lot of people kind of looked at him when he first came out and thought kind of pretty boy. And actually, I think the same with Brad Pitt as well. I think Brad Pitt's a very underrated actor as well.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, I spoke about this recently, actually, on the podcast. I think Brad Pitt, can we say Brad Pitt's underrated because he's such a big name? But I think that's the point. You know what I mean? Like, he's a big name and folk look at him like, oh, it's Brad Pitt, but you don't realise how good. Like, see, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he makes that film.
Steals it every season. That's another. Well, that's Tarantino, isn't it? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Aye, but so that's again, obviously, that's another one that I've only watched that once or twice. I need to watch that another couple of times.
That's a
it's one of these kind of layered, it's kind of multi-layered films as well, where so much goes on. Even the bit with Bruce Lee and all that, you know what I mean?
Aye.
it's like how he's sort of like turned Bruce Lee into a dick, you know what I mean? It's like, wow. How can Bruce Lee be a dick, man? It's Bruce Lee.
Aye, but that one's similar to Pulp Fiction in terms of the dialogue, but it's just like there's loads of conversations going on, and you're just sitting listening, going what, and then there's this big moment at the end. But that's a
Manson, wasn't it? It was a Charles Manson based on that, isn't it?
Aye.
But even all that, it's like I love Tarantino's kind of angle on life, his take on life. You know what I mean? It takes everything from a different angle. It's almost like, as you say, it's almost like he sees life. I think he wants us to be part of the film. I think he wants us to be in the film, and you do feel as though you're in the scene at the time. And I think it's a dialogue that kind of brings you in and makes you feel part of the film. You know,
it's probably why he puts himself in a lot of the films as well. He puts himself in the scenes. You know what I mean? He
kind of ruined Django Unchained a wee bit for me, but
Django's a great film. Christoph Waltz in that film is amazing.
Don't get me started on Waltz, mate. And Glorious Bastards again. One of my favourite movies. Waltz is just, but he was in Bond as well. I just felt as though he should have been more. It should have been more of him, and especially Spectre. I don't think he was in it enough.
No.
But I love Waltz. I think Waltz is fucking. Honestly, I could watch Waltz all day.
I was going through a thing on, I don't know if it was Facebook or whatever, but it was like a countdown of the most. Was it uncomfortable, or maybe it was just like most tense scenes in movie history, and I was flicking through them, and it was like, what is the most tense scene? And I was like, I don't know, I can't decide, flicking through them, and the last picture was that opening scene in Inglourious Bastards when
he holds up. He asks for the drinks.
Aye.
What I'm talking about.
Aye, what with the Jews underneath the floor?
Oh, that bit. Oh my god!
You know what I mean? And he's like, do you have Jews underneath this? And the guy's like, he's just broken him emotionally to the point where he needs to admit it, and they just shoot the floorboards. Oh, mate, but that bit as well with the drink is also incredible. Glorious Bastards is brilliant, and I also love The Hateful Eight as well. He's got so many good films.
Yeah, I love that scene in the pub. See the scene in the pub when they ask for 2 more drinks.
Aye,
and he goes in Germany we would say 2. Now that bit, I love that. And then the scene in the cinema. Well, I love. No, what I love about him is his female characters. See, Tarantino's female characters, they are so strong. He always has a strong female lead in each of his films, and it's almost like they are the old school hero. They're not heroine characters; they're hero characters played by women. If that makes sense.
Badass women, aye.
Aye, and I love that, mate. Kill Bill, Glorious Bastards, Pulp Fiction. I mean, there's always these strong women characters, and I love that about it as well.
Aye, we did Kill Bill recently on the podcast, and just watching that scene where Uma Thurman's in and she just like kills all the 88, and it's just with the samurai sword and she's slicing them as they go out. Just mental, unbelievable.
Love it, mate. Love all that kind of stuff. It's amazing, man. Tarantino is just wow. I just he's a guy who I always look for his next film. I mean, what's he going to do next? Where's he going to go next?
I feel like he's the easy answer when someone asks you who your favourite director is. He's the easy answer, but at the end of the day, every one of his films is class, you know.
I like Nolan's. I like Nolan brothers. I know they're good. I love those Batman movies. I love obviously Dark Knight Rising and the trilogy. All that kind of stuff as well.
Obviously, this is the Good Bit podcast. Can you tell me what you think the best bit of Pulp Fiction is, or if not the best bit, your favourite bit?
Wow, the scene I always look forward to, I guess. A few. I do like the whole kind of date scene in Jack Rabbit Slimzo.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's so long as well, and that's what makes it. You know what I mean? Like, it just keeps going.
Aye, she talks about a pilot. So she's like, I'm an actress. I did a pilot.
Aye,
he's like Fox Force. Is it Fox Force 5?
Fox Force 1 or whatever it is. Aye.
Fox War 5, there's 5 chicks, and they all had different.
Aye, that's right.
Superpowers. Remember?
Aye.
Talked about that. And
They talk about the $5 shake.
that's it. And she's out on nut. Well, he's out his nut, isn't he? He's just throwing out his box on the date because he's trying to get through it. And then you see him warming to her as the date goes on, as the dialogue goes on, and you see a connection building, and you see them warming each other, and you kind of, that's when the suspension, that's when the tension building up.
Definitely.
Something going to happen between. He's not going to take his chance. He's not going to take his chance, surely.
No.
And then she's like, do you want to dance? I believe you're my date, blah, blah, blah. And she's totally in control of the scene at that point.
Aye.
You know? And then when the wee guy comes up and says, what's your names? He goes, Miss Billabo. And all that kind of, it just kind of adds to it all, doesn't it? It just kind of adds to it all.
Aye. The kind of mystique it.
And then he starts dancing, and you just think, oh, there's Travolta. There's Travolta doing his
Travolta's back. Aye.
You just see him shuffling. You're like, wow, you calm down, Megan. You're going to end up in a lot of trouble. You're going to get yourself a lot of trouble here.
We've all been there. And then he takes he takes her home, and he's like, he asked her what the joke was, and he said, "What did one tomato suit the other tomato when he ran forward? Ketchup." And he goes to laugh. Aye, he's like, "Huh." And it's this awkward moment when it's like he didn't laugh, and then obviously he leaves her. And I watched the scene on YouTube last night where, again, she's freaking out or whatever, and he needs to do the adrenaline in the heart.
Aye.
I think that's a forgotten scene in this film.
Yeah.
I think it's probably because there's so many belters. There's so many great scenes throughout the film.
Eric Stokes, he's the drug dealer, isn't he?
Aye, that's right. Who's amazing. Aye. And that moment where she wakes up and stuff, you're watching it and you're so tense because you're thinking she's got to die here, and it's going to be his fault because he's done nothing wrong, you know.
Well, he's probably got himself killed about 4 or 5 times in that film, hasn't he, Travolta? Yep. And he's another one who sails close to the edge, sails close to the wind. And I said that about my comedy. That's probably how I can kind of relate to these guys. These films, I like kind of edgy films. That takes her out for a date. He nearly ends up taking her home. He takes the drugs. He nearly gets an overdose. Eventually, when he walks into the house, they're shooting at him. I mean, when Bruce Willis. So he gets himself in so many scenarios where he could. You know he's got to die at some point. You know what I mean? Because he's like a cat with 9 lives in that film.
Aye. What about when he shoots Marvin in the face?
What did you shoot Marvin in the face for?
What the hell you do that for? I didn't mean it, man. I didn't mean I should shot Marvin in the face.
Oh no!
It's so violent. Like, you get that shot of the back of the car, and just the whole back windscreen just goes red.
Oh, what? Let's talk about the cameos in that film. Harvey Keitel's cameo,
right.
and also Christopher Waltz. Christopher Walken with the watch.
Aye.
Oh my! What that scene that is as well.
Just comes out of nowhere and delivers this monologue for about 6 minutes. Like,
look, he wakes up. You think about it.
Aye.
That's probably 2 of the best cameos as well.
Aye.
Keitel and Walken, their cameos. Wow, you could make a film based on their cameos.
On their characters. Aye, definitely.
The Wolfman.
Aye.
When he shows up, he's like, "To the fucking police with sugar on top." That bit. Keitel's got this kind of badass hardman kind of attitude about him. He takes no shit. You know what I mean?
Aye.
Like, okay, boys, you made a mess. We're gonna get cleaned up. Here's what you got to do. And he's like, and Travolta's like, I just don't like being spoken to like that. That. He's like, what? Like,
imagine speaking to Hitman like that. Like,
exactly. That's what I'm thinking. And that's he probably comes close to getting killed there as well. You know what I mean? So, very fucking pleased with sugar on top. Love it, mate. Love it.
It's a belter. Right. Well, anything else to add about Pulp Fiction? What does this film mean to you? What are you going to think about this film going forward as we're in closing here?
Wow, mate. It's just like almost like it's like my comfort film. You know what I mean? If I'm wanting picked up, or if I've got a spare couple hours, nothing to do, I'm flicking through it. It's always Pulp Fiction I put on. And maybe not the full movie, but I just kind of sometimes I flick through scenes because
sometimes that's all you need.
Stands alone. These scenes does stand alone.
And even just like exactly with a film like this, but it is like a lot of scenes with a lot of characters. You can just watch their own arcs. You know what I mean? Just be like, yep, got a bit of Pulp Fiction. So,
but definitely. Even the soundtrack. Sometimes I'll just put a soundtrack on as well. You know what I mean? Because the soundtrack takes you to the scene. You listen to the soundtrack, it takes you to the scene as well. You know what I mean? So, it's good for that. Good for that, mate. What have you got coming up? Do you get any other shows that you can tell us about? And you've got to actually remember dates now. I know it's difficult. Yeah, I've got a couple of things coming up. I'm doing a couple of wee kind of local shows in kind of smaller venues. It's a wee social club in Yoka. I'm doing one in there on the second Thursday every month. It's a kind of free gig. It's a free gig, and it's kind of given me opportunity to kind of give lots of people newer acts some time on stage, but also for me to try out some new material as well. I'm hopefully going to do something. I know everything's at last minute with me, but hopefully going to do a wee bit during Edinburgh as well, which it's not being confirmed yet. So
of the Fringe,
but aye. So
nice.
It's a kind of last minute thing where a venue's looking to kind of put some comedy on for it at the last minute. So I wasn't going to do it. I've got an idea. As you know, I also do a bit of barbering as well.
That's right.
I thought about this idea, this kind of comedy barber kind of idea.
Cool.
Where I get somebody up on stage and I cut their hair live and kind of have banter with them when I'm cutting their hair. You know what I mean?
Cool, that's a good idea.
And also, during I had one shop, I had a whiteboard and I'd write all these kind of funny messages on this whiteboard. Have you seen in my messages?
I did.
So I thought about kind of having a kind of PowerPoint behind me and a screen and showing all the messages and talking about what was behind the messages at the time as well.
That's a good idea.
So just to kind of tie it all in, but I've probably left it at the last minute, which I always do. I always leave things to the last minute. It's something I'm not a good planner.
No, but Fringe isn't until like late July, August, isn't it? So you've probably got time.
I know, but they want everything in, like, and all the brochures and all that. They want all kind of early doors to get put out there. So, but I think I might have. But you always get cancellations. You always get somebody pulling out. So I might get. If I get a suitable venue, it's something I'd like to just kind of run and just kind of suck it and see how it goes.
See what happens. Definitely.
And maybe it's a case of doing 2 haircuts and one. The first half hour you do a comedian, so you have a guest comedian and you give them a trim, and then like the second half hour you get a member of the audience up, you give them a trim, and then you chat to them and all that kind of stuff.
The haircut sessions or whatever. That's a good idea.
Something like that, mate. I thought a different name, a couple of names. Something like I can't remember. Shot back in smiles, like stupid
nice.
things. You know what I mean?
But a close shave or something like that.
Stuff like that, mate. Or even just selling it like it is, comedy barber. You know what I mean? so people know what they're getting on a tin. You know what I mean?
Live haircut on stage with a comedian telling jokes, doing a show, starring Rob Kane.
Want a free haircut
and some jokes.
That's it.
Cool. Right. Thanks very much, Rob. I really appreciate your time.
Jokes and fades.
I appreciate you coming on today. I'm always indebted to you, so thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And
you did a great job at the time. You deserved it. So well done.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for listening. Take care of yourselves. We'll catch you out down the road. See you next time.
Citizens